philosophy matters.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Jack here, and I am excited for another episode. Things are just smoothly going along with these shows, and I've just been really thrilled to be able to bring on more cool people to talk to and talk about the principles of liberty and what's going on out in the world. And we do have another special guest today. But before I make that announcement, just a quick reminder here that the Voluntarist comic campaign is now live. It is on Indiegogo, and we are funding. We're doing great so far. I think we're almost to 2K on this next issue, and it's just really an amazing opportunity here to be able to finish the Origins arc and to also be able to turn that into a trade paperback compendium. So we're actually not only doing that new issue, the Origins 6, but we're also going to be taking the first and second issues, remastering them, and then bringing them together for a big trade paperback compendium. So head on over there either later after the show or tonight and check that on out and see how you can support it, because you're trying to bring the principles of liberty to the comic book world, especially with all the statist SJW nonsense coming out of Hollywood these days. I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, the reviews of the Marvel movies and Disney, it's just straight to the trash. So, all right, now we're going to get to the guest. My guest today is Kelly Carden, who is the Libertarian Party candidate for the District 2 Supervisor position in Kern County, California. So welcome, Kelly. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Jack? How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So it's been fun getting to know you a little bit behind the scenes. We were just talking before a little bit about your life over in California and things, that have been, going on in terms of your work and some fun and things like that. So could you give everybody here just a little bit of background about what it is that you're up to these days and how you got involved with Liberty and Libertarian Party stuff and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So like Jack mentioned, that I live in Kern County, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. I actually live about 80 miles northeast of Los Angeles, of downtown LA. I live in a county that's actually made famous by a man named Kevin McCarthy. He is my congressman, and that's how most people know Kern County. And Elon Musk has SpaceX is located in Mojave, which is 11 miles from my house too. So, but I'm running for the Kern County Board of Supervisors, which is the executive and legislative branch of our county's government. So it's the highest level of the county government. I decided to run for that last year when everything kept getting more expensive. In the middle of the pandemic and all the lockdowns and people being kept home from work, the water bill went up, the trash bill went up, the land use bill went up twice, and at the same time as the water bill going up, the assholes at the water county or the water district installed sod. Like, hey, no grass at your house, but you're gonna pay for the grass here, And I said, I'm gonna fucking run. And then, how to get involved with the Libertarian Party. If anyone from California tells you it's because of a man named Matthew Ryan Butts. He is a fantastic recruiter for the Libertarian Party and just connecting people to liberty. He likes the message them until they finally give up. That's his favorite strategy. He's good at that, and that's how he got me. And I got involved with the county party first. Then with the state party, I helped plan a couple events. I helped plan the Hotep Jesus event in Visalia last year. I was able to find us that great hotel right across the street for a way better price. Dude, that's how I got involved with Liberty. I started talking to my neighbors and realized that when you're speaking to people one-on-one, even people that aren't libertarians, they tend to agree with us because we're reasonable and there's no more arguing about it. And they're just like, oh, it's so easy.
So what exactly led to you becoming a libertarian and adopting these values? Was there a specific aha moment for you?
Oh man. Kern County, California is considered the most Republican or conservative district in the entire country. It's insane. So I was like the neocon. I mean, we were justified in bombing brown people from poor countries. I guess I forgot that my family is brown people from poor countries. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, and I thought that it was okay that they were spying on us because at least if they catch one fucking terrorist, then I realized they're the damn terrorists, But then what really happens is you grow up, right? And you start realizing all of these restrictive laws are how stupid they are. You realize, damn, my friends are in jail for weed. But people are doing really bad shit outside and they're not in trouble. But why are they so focused on things like this, right? And I started kind of following the money. I've always like cared about that. Like the fiscally conservative part was really the only thing that made sense to me. So I would follow the money, and then I'm like, realize the Republicans aren't fiscally conservative. They haven't had a balanced budget since like 1957, you know. And then Donald Trump came along as that giant middle finger in the room. So I voted for the Trump in 2016, which was like the greatest thing and the worst thing at the exact same time, because you know, we avoided Hillary Clinton, and I realized that there was no way I was voting for this dumbass again. And so in 2020, I think I got won over by all of the memes. Hold on real quick.
Uh-oh, it's the feds.
I can't even do the garage.
Well, this would be interesting to see what comes in.
Sorry, my wife just walked back in the door.
Okay.
The door's locked. But I guess we had a rental car, so shouldn't have a key. And I didn't either. So I had to come through the garage. I opened the garage door and came in. Good thing no one knows where I live. But yeah, so the memes caught me in 2020. So I totally voted for Jo Jorgensen, and I still think she would have been 100 times better than what's happening now. And that was how I kind of got introduced to the Libertarian Party. And then, like I said, at the same time, earlier I had mentioned to you before we started the show that I had posted a meme to Facebook, and Matthew Butts found it and immediately started messaging me, inviting me to meetings until I finally gave in.
So have you been a meme maker for a long time? Were you like engaged with that kind of online thing before?
No, I don't make memes. I just think they're easy to read. And I'm just like, man, I have no time in my life. So a meme is like the greatest little pop of information that you can get.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I definitely make a lot of memes, so I know that feel. When it comes to your history in terms of like intellectual thought and things like that, were there any specific authors or speakers that really left a big impact on you between 2016 2020 that really helped, you know, push and grow your thinking toward libertarian values?
So it was in 2020, I started following just everyone's books that I was seeing. So I started with like Matt Kibbe, you know, the Libertarian Manifesto, you know, don't hurt people, don't take their things, you know, and I would read like just really modern things and just a lot of podcasts, right? Like the law. I've listened to a lot of podcasts about things like that. And then it just started. And then I think the eye-opening moment was when I started realizing that we create laws that we ourselves don't think that we don't have to follow, or we don't have to worry about breaking. And then I said, so why are we passing them? You know, and then I think it was a lot of it's just self-realization. I can't really point to like a hot book moment, you know. I mean, economics, if I can start it here. Economics, One Lesson by Hazlitt is sitting on my bookshelf, on my mantle. And it's actually on my mom's Jesus shelf right now. So my mom's an old school Catholic from the Philippines. So we have a whole shelf above the fireplace that is all of the Jesus figurines.
Oh, nice.
And so like I'm constantly adding like libertarian books to it. Sometimes I hide them behind the statue so she doesn't see him right away.
You have the sacred text shelf, basically. You have
I'm converting it. Yeah. So.
That's awesome. So how'd you get involved with the Mises Caucus specifically and you know, getting roped into that?
So again, Matthew Butts, I kind of got voluntold that I was in it all of a sudden. I didn't really know what it was at first. And then, you know, you start listening again to this, the people, Tom Woods and Dave Smith and guys like you. And then over at Not a Libertarian Podcast, Will Dotery. And that was kind of, I agree with all these guys. And then seeing both sides of all the fighting, because before I even knew what the Mises Caucus was, I'd seen people talking shit about it, calling them racist, but I've never experienced any racism there. Let me tell you what, I have experienced some racism in the Libertarian Party, and it's usually people who say something stupid like, oh, just because you're the one brown guy doesn't mean they're not racist. Oh yeah, thanks for calling me a token brown guy, dumbass. Like they don't even realize the shit they say, right? So that's the only racism that I've ever experienced in the Libertarian Party specifically, is people trying to tell me that I was too ignorant to know that I was hanging out with racists. And then, of course, that pushes me towards it, because I'm like, yeah, you're the kind of guy who I don't want your help.
Right.
Like, you make it worse for me. Please stop. They're the kind of people who push things like identity politics that I think every son of an immigrant should push adamantly against, because it just cheapens the experience that our parents went through. Like, we don't want your help. We don't need it.
No, I agree that the, you know, kind of reverse racism of low expectations is something that is so common in the Mises Caucus critics, because, you know, if there is any evidence, of course, otherwise of people being of all different types of backgrounds and ethnicities and whatever, religious beliefs, nationalities, whatever, like, gamut of, spectrum. They're like, oh, well, whatever, you're just there token this or you're token that, you know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, so your individual experience and thoughts just don't matter. Like your reasoning about what you like, the values don't matter. It's kind of dehumanizing in that process.
For sure. And then, it really, the similarities also move into the fact that, like, I've seen over and over people, like, for instance, someone asked me, you told me you're just a libertarian because you want to pick and choose what you like. Yes. Like, is that not supposed to be what I want? Like, you should want that too. But then the real libertarians tell us, because we want to be in the Mises Caucus, that we're picking what we like too much. It's like the same thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it absolutely. I mean, when it comes to freedom of choice and just being able to say, hey, I have the ability to choose my own destiny, as long as I'm not literally stealing from somebody, defrauding them, using violence against them, why shouldn't I choose myself how to live my life how I want? Right.
Yeah.
So
whatever I want. I mean, as long as I'm not hurting you or taking your things, who cares?
Right. It's kind of wild how something that's such a simple truth that people can readily empathize with is so often missed in the world of politics, where people try to obfuscate what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's laughable. I mean, it's funny because I watch some people make comments, and then other people ask me, how come you don't pipe up more and you don't like stick up for the caucus more? I'll tell them, guys, it's because I'm busy. Like, I'm doing actual things that I believe are pushing liberty, and I don't care about that infighting in the sense that it doesn't affect me. I have 7 speaking engagements this week.
Wow.
And I have 5 next week and 4 the week after, and I'm speaking at a church on Memorial Day.
Wow.
I don't have time to worry or care about any of those things. And how do these people do? Like what are you not doing for liberty that means you have time to talk shit about other libertarians?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's one of those things where, once some group gets more successful in terms of, some type of endeavor within the liberty sphere, I often find there's many people who at first, they come in to try to be like, oh, this is cool, I want to support. And then they later on quickly backstab the group and shame them and try to poach from them because they don't like the fact that that group is being successful. Well, they're not. They're still struggling. And so they try to punch up and grab that, attention and clout for themselves. And I found that to be true, especially of the Mises Caucus, starting at the smallest levels of just these other, little caucuses that, little as in like, small membership groups, but, they're just like, oh, these guys are garbage, this or that. And they're trying to like downplay it and say that, as you said, they have a bunch of racists and bigots in there and this or that. And eventually those criticisms just ran dry because it didn't materialize. And all the evidence of all this stuff is like, okay, yeah, where is it? And time and again, the best that they could try to do is like, here's some random sock account in the group with 11,000 people of someone who got, booted out because it was like, they were let in first to see who they are. And then, oh, okay, it's like they're a troll. It's like none of these things are substantively describing anyone who's in leadership or who's running or who's an actual member and supporting, like actually active. So it's one of those things where you can just see that envy and jealousy coming out in its most ugly form.
And it's completely unnecessary. I had to finally tell somebody here in California, they want to talk about real libertarians, and they want to talk about how keeping the party relevant means keeping the caucus out. And so I asked, because, we had Jeff Hewitt run for governor this year in the recall last year, I should say. And whatever, the campaign didn't materialize hardly at all, but at least the candidate was sound, right? And I said, what did he get? Like 0.9%? That was literally every real libertarian in the state voting for him. That's your relevance, 0.9%. That's where the party is today, with 0.9% relevance. Who cares what you think?
Right. Yeah, no, of course. It's something that, has to be taken into consideration, that the reality of the number of actual people who vote or participate that way is very slim. And so the question is how is someone making the most of their time in reaching out to others? How are they actually changing minds, and is it sustainable? And I've found that those in the Libertarian Party, at least for the past roughly 10 years, maybe a little more, they have by and large, in terms of leadership, mostly relegated themselves to irrelevance by trying to beg for approval from mainstream outlets and mainstream media channels by, tapering their messaging down and watering it down, not having radical statements on the nature of the state and, in terms of abolishing things and saying, this is inappropriate for the government to be involved in at all. It's been very watered down. And I just don't think that is something that is sustainable. If you actually want to have growth, you need to have messaging that is either really fiery and inspires people and gets them, motivated and like I'm into this, or something that is, maybe more encouraging or inspiring, a little bit of the cooler tone thing where it's like, wow, like, really inspiring food for thought stuff, one of those things that really pushes people to want to engage. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we should be trying to inspire hearts and minds. So that, right, there should definitely be multiple avenues that we do that: being fiery, being open, being honest, being like you said, encouraging. But all we've done for the last 30 years is win arguments and win a lot of arguments and lose a lot of hearts and minds, because all we want to do is argue about not being a real libertarian to everybody. That's literally the crux of my entire problem with what they're doing to the Mises Caucus. Is the same thing that they've done to the same thing that so the party's 50 years old and the caucus is 5 years old.
Right.
So for 45 years, all they've done is tell other people they're not libertarians. How many people have you met randomly throughout your life that, I tried the libertarian thing once? I can think of hundreds and hundreds of people through my life that have said that to me. Older people, my dad's age, I tried that once and everyone just said that I wasn't a real libertarian. So,
that's fascinating. You found people that would even, know to say that, that they're a real libertarian that way. That's funny.
Yeah, but because the only people that are saying it are the ones who've been in the party for 50 years. And they're the same people that are now gatekeeping and calling us not real libertarians and just Republican lights. So all they've done is they've taken a strategy that didn't work to the masses, and now they're applying it to us. It already worked against the masses, I should say. We can't even get 5%.
Would you say that when it comes to the leadership positions, though, and in terms of who's actually managing things, would you agree that the wide tent approach to at least how it's led and managed would not be appropriate in terms of making sure that people who are actually there are principled and understand the core values of self-ownership and non-aggression, things like that?
No, yeah, they're bad. They're nothing. They're not growing the party. I'm in full support of Angela McArdle. I mean, I agree with you. Like, I write letters and I post them, and people are like, "Holy cow! I've never seen anyone address the government in the way that you do." And I'm like, yeah, that's how you make them listen. I mean, my Dianne Feinstein and me, we actually corresponded back and forth over the David Chipman nomination because of the way because of the fiery approach that I took with her. And she actually changed her vote from a yes to him to a no. That's part of why he ended up not being confirmed. And which is great, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But I mean, yeah, but I also think that there can be a difference. Like if you can't explain, sometimes you can be fiery and I wasn't a fan of the Jeremy Kauffman tweets last summer. I've since heard him explain them and I've become a fan of them. Right. But in the moment I wasn't, I had to have some really annoying conversations with people that were like, "Oh, do you really believe this?" And like, what, that minimum wage laws don't have anything to do with child labor? Like, yeah, I agree with that. Like, my mom was a child laborer my mom was a child laborer when she was 6 years old. Ending child labor laws doesn't end child hunger. Like, they're completely separate. They have nothing to do with each other. So, I mean, but I had to explain those things. But I also pretty much say taxation. I mean, I said in an interview yesterday that I almost talking about a special tax. I almost said that whoever would think of it is an idiot, but I was live on the news. But holy shit. Like, I think it is important to be fiery and to be open and honest. And I think what happens the most when you're on point with the messaging and it's good messaging is you're going to be the most honest to yourself. Because you're not trying to sound pretty to make anyone happy. This is who we are. Like us or don't. Either way, we're going to take over. We're going to leave you alone either way.
Yeah. Take over, leave you alone. That's a funny encapsulation, right?
Take over the world and then immediately leave you alone.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting thing because, obviously when it comes to political power, that's always a concern that people have is that, oh, when you have power, what's going to happen afterward? Are you going to just, suddenly betray your principles and then start, making backdoor deals and try to do things to stay in? And that's why I think it's just so important that the people who are running for offices and who are looking for leadership positions, that they have a clear track of rejecting state solutions, that they understand how to think outside the state, how to say, okay, there is this problem, but let's look at how that could be solved privately, or how the government can get out of the way to allow private solutions to happen, whether that's, getting in the way of being able to feed the homeless with charities or build, small homes, even though they're not, up to the crazy, whatever California standard of codes are, but they actually are habitable. Otherwise they're not, like dangerous, they're not going to like fall in or something. But, there's just so many different ways to get people to actually think outside the state and to, live that life of saying, hey, everybody, there is always an alternative. You don't have to default to, okay, well, let's grow government. Oh, we got to get more government funding for this. So having people in there who get that, at a core level, I think is so important.
Yeah. So what I tell people is I when I'm talking to people, especially like one-on-one, like at a fair, is we'll be sitting there and I'll ask, I said, what's the root cause of whatever issue we're talking about? What's the root cause of the issue? How does the government solution affect that root cause? Well, it doesn't. So that's because government solutions aren't solutions, they're services. They're there to keep people employed, not there to fix people's problems. And then explain how we actually fix those problems by allowing the government to move out of the way so somebody else can come in and actually touch the root issue. And looking at certificate of need laws, because if we know homelessness is an issue, and we know that mental health is a driver of that, and certificate of need laws stand in the way of allowing mental health programs to open up, get this certificate of need law out of the way so that we can do that. Right. And I think it's, so for candidates, what I always tell candidates is to remember that we're not activists though, right? So we have to remain actionable so we can explain those things. I mean, somebody got mad because I didn't say taxation is theft on the news yesterday. And it's not that I 100% don't agree that taxation is theft. It's, what is that going to earn me on the news other than a meme for myself, right? But I explicitly went into how they were stealing from us in like 7 different ways. I just didn't say taxation is theft, but I actionably explained why this tax was wrong, why this tax is going to hurt people, not help people. And I got probably 100 messages yesterday from people saying, hey man, like, I'm glad you're standing out against that sales tax increase. Then, well, you're welcome, but it's not just a sales tax increase. It's any and all taxation I think is wrong.
Right.
And they're like, oh, wow, I like that. And then it just grows the conversation. And now I'm putting signs in people's yards.
Yeah, I mean, there is a balance sometimes, depending on what your ultimate goal is, of waiting to say the most, radical things before, it's, too early kind of thing. You want to make sure that you're able to get to the audience and start to reach with your message. I just think that it'd be great if you did one day get to that point where they got really comfortable and cozy with you in the media, and then you came out in that real big interview with the taxation stuff at the end. That'd be perfect.
So I do have a bombshell line that I will be dropping at some point, probably at the debate, and it has to do with with drug addiction. And the background is one of my opponents, he was arrested in college for dealing drugs, for marijuana. I literally don't care, right? Like, so what? But when he was arrested, he took advantage of a program that kept it off of his record. And I am okay with that as well, right? Like, cool, like you kept the record clean. But in Kern County, he would have gone to prison, right? So at some point I'm going to drop the line. I'm going to say, hey, I just think Kern County should offer the same kind of pre-incarceration treatment programs that Chairman Scribner took advantage of when he was dealing drugs in college.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I love those kind of setup lines where you actually call out other people and hypocrisies. It's a very powerful tool.
Well, there's moments where that shock therapy is literally, I can't think of anything better. And I try to use it as much as I can. Sorry, the dog's like climbing under the table. And I've got 3 dogs, but one of them is like the biggest attention seeker ever. She will make you pet her. Like she will like lean against you and then move herself. So she's like petting herself on your legs.
Can we see the dog from here?
Lily, come here. Come here, girl. Come here. Come on. Come on. Up here. She's fat.
Oh, wow. That's a big dog. I was almost expecting to be a little bit smaller, but that's
freaking out. She's a big dog, dude.
Beautiful. That looks like a very pettable dog.
So she so we got her, and we were living in Reno at the time we were there from 2013 until 2018, and it was right before we had my daughter, and my wife was online, and she somebody went on Facebook and they said, hey, we were walking by the river, the what's the name of the river? The Truckee River, and they found a box with 2 puppies in it. In the river. So dogs are soaking wet, and it sucks because there's no litter that's just 2 puppies. So that box had more dogs in it at some point. And so we tried right away to get her, and the guy's like, well, I'd like to keep them together. We were in a small apartment. We had our second kid on the way. I wasn't taking 2 dogs. So he called maybe 3 or 4 hours later and said he can't find anyone to take both and to come get her. So we've had her ever since, and she's terrified of the water.
Yeah, I can imagine. Traumatized.
So when we had our kids, like when it would be bath time, if the door wasn't open to the bathroom, she would like bite and scratch at the bottom of the door, and I'm sure they charged me for it.
Wow.
And until we would let her in, and then she would just want to like pop up on the side and watch. Like, the kids are okay, but don't get me wet.
That's awesome. Oh, I mean, you're a dog adopter as well, so.
Yeah, I have 2 other ones, man. I have so we have her. Go away, go. And then we have 2 half pit bull, half labs.
Wow.
Aw. And they're big. I have a big black one and a big white one. And so I want to get so I've taken the black one, and I will continue to take him with me to like meet people. And people are like, you take a pit bull with you to campaign?
Right.
And I'm like, well, yeah, nobody's going to crowd me, and no one's going to yell at me.
That's true, actually. Yeah, no one's going to mess with you with a pit bull. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I want to get a big vest that says that Black Dogs Lives Matters.
Yeah, or if you had a lab, Black Labs Matter.
Yeah. He's half lab, but he definitely looks like pit bull.
There you go.
So those are both rescues. My mom saved him out of the jail, out of the doggy pound. So he knows what it's like to be a young black dog in jail.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's a good thing that you're taking care of these animals and showing how voluntary solutions can actually help make the world a better place, right?
And it has nothing to do with being Filipino. It has nothing to do with the cookbook in the closet, 100 Ways to Walk Your Dog.
None of those things. But yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have dogs?
You're not gonna I don't have any pets myself right now. No. Growing up I had, a miniature dachshund, I had a turtle, a snake, hamster, common little things, but nothing crazy.
So I had a turtle when I was a kid. His name was Amos. And I also had a dachshund. They said it was a mini dachshund. I think it was huge. It was not. And but this turtle, I would put him in the garden every night for like an hour, let him go outside and like run around the garden, bite at the leaves. Well, one day I forgot about him. I was playing video games, and I forgot about him. So it's like late. I had woken up, like I'm running outside and just my chonies. I'm sure I was probably like 7 years old, looking for this turtle. Couldn't find the turtle. I said, all right, I'll find him in the morning before I go to school. So I woke up early, went outside, looked in the garden for like an hour before school. Couldn't find the turtle. I said, holy shit, dude, how did the turtle run away? Like 10 years later, I was in high school and we were cleaning the backyard, and I found the turtle shell in the backyard.
Oh, okay. Well, he didn't make it that far.
Yeah, he only made it around the house.
Oh, no. That's crazy. So speaking of crazy things happen around your area, how was your response with all the, crazy rules in California? Because, I mean, being a libertarian in California is one of the roughest, I would imagine, things to be, especially these past couple of years with all the mandates and the masking stuff. How did you respond, and how did you make it through?
So I probably only wore a mask a dozen times, but I just didn't. We didn't go outside. We stayed home. And not in like a weird way. We didn't stay home like locked down.
Right.
But, like, I prefer being at home. So, but I don't live in LA. So the nice thing is it was weird. We can go to the store here in town because we're in Kern County. You just walk in without a mask. At no point did anyone ever make you put a mask on.
Good.
Right, in Kern County. Not very, very rare. But 3 miles away is the LA County line, and any store on that side, you would have to put a mask on. They would not let you in. So that was kind of weird. But like here in Kern County, it wasn't even a thing. The only thing that like got really hard towards the end was watching my kids come home with the sock in their fucking mouth. And I mean, I went and I spoke out. That was another thing that kind of started the whole thing, right? That's what got me speaking out at board meetings about it. Oh man, I'll have to send you, if you like some of those strong worded things, I'm going to send you a speech that I gave to a school district here in town. I told them they were prostituting our kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And then another one, I was so mad. I slapped the table because nobody was paying attention to what I was saying. I hit the table as hard as I could.
Wow.
And they all looked up, and I was like quoting Jefferson while I did it. Do not consent.
Nice.
So, I mean, that was the worst part. And so I had to go to our school board meeting, and I went in there and told them, I said, listen, and so my hard line, of course, no question, my red line was going to be the vaccine mandate. You know, that was, at that point, my kids there was no way that anybody is going to inject my kid without me knowing it or without my consent, right? No way. Any doctor dumb enough is going to lose a limb. Like, they'll never inject anyone else because they won't have an arm. Like, so that was where, like, I went in and kind of tried to do the red line. And I don't know if it was, I don't know. It was because my daughter, I think she kind of started helping her come out of her shyness. It was just that age. She hadn't been to school. And I think she was so tired of just doing everything at home and doing it over the screen. But I went in and told them, I said, listen, you guys have this same school district has been educating my family for almost 60 years. Since 1965, my family has had a member of our family in school in this school district. If you force me to mandate my children, we will be ending that relationship. You know, and I forced the board to admit in front of everybody that they would vote to enforce mandate. They would not let them force mandate our children. And these are guys who were Republicans who had kind of waffed earlier. But with me standing there and Matt Butts was there with me, we made them tell us that there was no way that they would let them vaccinate the children. So it was just a really weird experience because we didn't have the rules that LA County had. You know, no police were going to say anything to you. The cops weren't there. But then my family, we actually drove across the country during 2020. We drove all the way to Memphis and went to the Battle of Shiloh. And then we drove down to New Orleans for like 4 days and then drove back home. So we were gone for I think it was 23 days we were gone.
Wow.
In the middle of the pandemic. The only place we didn't explore was New Mexico. And that's because as we were driving into New Mexico, I was looking up, I was like reading the news, and they were like legitimately pulling people, like stopping people that look like tourists and demanding like vaccine passes from them.
That's sick.
Yeah, like holy cow. So when we checked into the hotel in Albuquerque, I think I went and picked up a pizza, and then we just left the next morning and left New Mexico. I was like, yeah, I'm not even playing that game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's wild how much physical violence was threatened against people during that time, and how much people don't really, I think, reflect on the depth of those threats, because so many were just accustomed that, oh, okay, the police are gonna throw up signs in every store saying, oh, you can't come in here, everything has to be shut down, and there's limited occupancy, and you better be face gagged. And I mean, so quickly, without any hesitation, a large number of police departments around the United States all enforced these mandates across virtually every state. Even in, I think South Dakota with Kristi Noem, while she didn't have any type of mandate or anything like that, there were some places, that were more, I guess you could say, friendly to the establishment's commands out of DC and CDC. So, everywhere, there are people who were just complying and threatening literal physical violence and caging over just trying to go eat and try to go to the store and shop and try to see your loved ones before they die. And
here in Southern California, we had that really famous video of the guy who was paddleboarding like 100 yards offshore.
Yep.
And they forced him to come in. They sent a boat out to get him. They forced him to break social distancing. Yeah. And they took him to jail. And he was literally like, nobody could have gotten to him if they wanted to. They had to get a boat to go to him.
Right. He's in the water, in the sun.
He's literally, like, I don't know how more socially distanced you can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were afraid to go for walks for a while. I mean, it was crazy. Like, and then so when we were in Tennessee, we were on our way to where my mother-in-law used to live, and we pull into a gas station, and I'm already kind of like, oh my God, like how backwoods are we? This is like the most backwoods place I'd ever been, certainly. So I'm like, I don't want to walk around by myself. So I pull up to the Shell station, and then I start walking towards the gas station. I realize I don't have a mask on. And at the exact same time, there's a cop pulls up. And I'm like, oh, man. So I'm like, hey, do I need a mask? And he goes, hey, man, nobody's up for election here. There's no fucking coronavirus going on.
That's awesome. At least there's a few good people out there willing.
It was pretty like, holy cow.
Yeah. Wow. And it really it did a number on so many people's ability to think, and I just hope that, with people like you taking a stand and actually going to these meetings and, calling out these statist controllers and their sophistry and trying to implement these Orwellian tactics on people. I'm just, really thankful that people like you, did your part to actually push back and let others know that, not taking this, sitting down, that there is going to be pushback there. People are going to coalition. And I think that that's pretty clear now more than ever, especially after all the nonsense that the government's done with, keep moving the goalposts and, making things up as they go, despite everybody realizing, wait a second, you're not letting us back out and be free after you said we can get these, 1 and 2, whatever, shots. I think it's clearer than ever that people are not ready to go along with this nonsense again, but obviously you got to stay vigilant and keep teaching people the principles of liberty and reminding them of how quickly, in an instant, those things can be lost if those in the state all collaborate to oppress us at the same time under some, false pretense. So it's
other ways that I do that too, that I think are really important is I take part in any candidate forum that I possibly can, especially ones on the right, just because it's a natural fit for my background, right? Not necessarily because I think they're better libertarians, if we can convert them, but and it's where we are in Kern County. And I would call out every one of them. I mean, I was at this one Freedom Fest and it was a super Trumpy event. But I would, I was kind of the whole time just like, man, you guys are way too Republican for me.
Right.
But I get up there and I start going and I'm like yelling into the mic because everyone else is like, can't even hear him over the wind. So I'm making sure that I'm heard. And I said, you know what? And I said, I appreciate that the 13 candidates before me also they would not vote for vaccine mandates for our kids. And everyone kind of clapped and hooted for them. I said, I'm embarrassed that not a single one of you said that you would refuse to enforce them even if passed. And everyone went apeshit. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And all of the candidates put their head down. None of them wanted to look at me anymore. And I was like, because that's the kind of bullshit politics that allows our rights to be trampled.
Right.
You guys saying that you're not going to vote for mandates, but how are you not going to enforce them if they pass? And then I laid out exactly what I was going to do. The only acceptable thing that for the county supervisors to do at this point is to issue a proclamation rejecting these mandates and then issuing orders to the sheriff to refuse to not only for him to refuse to enforce them, but for him to not assist the state in any way to enforce it themselves.
Right.
And I got far and away the loudest applause there. I mean, Matt was like, dude, you rocked it. Like everyone was like, holy cow. And I was like, it's because I'm the only one who actually has a backbone or a principle.
Right.
And it was great though, because all of these candidates started now adopting these same kinds of stances because they were called out on their crap.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you're describing is something that I witness as well, which is that, the old saying is politics, downstream from culture a bit. A lot of these candidates have or were at least getting comfortable with going along with the DC establishment because they were inundated with the mainstream narrative of things, watching, mainstream cable channels, mainstream newspaper publications and stuff like that. So when people come in physically, to these different events, whether it's rallies or, council meetings, stuff like that, and they actually, come in with really angry statements about how what they're doing is wrong, and then they get a huge eruption of applause. That is a signal, right? That's their crap moment. Like they're literally getting that immediate signal to them saying, oh, this is changing. Like, I mean, your idea of what people really think is skewed. And I think that that's extremely important in helping to shift the Overton window. There's a lot of people in these positions do just go along with what they think is going to get them elected, or help at least move the needle for them to more likely succeed to get elected. So doing that, I think, is a very powerful thing. And it's also a powerful way to help unify people who are also passionate about the issues. So again, I really appreciate that you took the time to do these things, and keep doing that, because it is a necessary cultural signal to everybody there, both the audience and people who are sitting in front talking, to show, hey, people are tired of being bossed around and told what they have to do with their lives, and to walk up and down grocery aisles in random directions. It makes absolutely no sense. You're breathing the same recycled air, and you have to like spend more time in the grocery store just to go through the aisle, to go through, one ways, whatever. The crazy stuff, just absolutely, like, people are going to look back at this time period, and, as probably as, crazy as people look back at, like, the tulip fandom, and back in the Middle Ages, where, there's a huge tulip craze. Like, it's people are going to look back at this like, what was this mania? Like, what was this thing? And people thought that, they were going to stop this with these absolutely worthless measures. So, I just really
can't wait. I've been saying that at some point we will see commercials where if you or a loved one was injured by the COVID vaccine, like, there's no way that it doesn't happen at some point, whether it's 10 years or 50 years, it's absolutely going to happen. I mean, this whole narrative, like you said, is completely falling apart. But, this is completely off topic, but I mean, it does tie back in what we were talking about earlier, how quickly we realize that things can happen and be taken away. So, I mean, as my family obviously is all still in the Philippines. My mom's the only one from her family who actually made it to America. So I've been like inundated with just all of the posts for their election. And they just reelected the dictator's son. Like the guy literally was a dictator of the Philippines for 30 years. Him and his wife, they stole like $900 million from the Filipino people. Yeah. And they just made his son president. Yeah. And my mom's like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? Like, you don't remember? Like, and my grandfather was a guerrilla fighter. So like, our Filipino history is he was a mechanic who decided to pick up arms and fight against the Japanese during World War II. And even though I had uncles that collaborated and were chefs and cooks for armies, and my grandpa was like, no, man. So like, I think even familial, like, I've always had like those kinds of examples, dude, my grandpa's like 5'2". He's like the most gentle guy I've ever known. He played pranks on my grandma that were the best, but I just could picture him like fighting with another little 5'2" Japanese guy, both with sharp objects, like standing off in the jungle.
You got that history of rebellion in your blood. That's it.
Yeah. So he, and then, it's something else, man, watching all these people vote in the Philippines for another dictator, which is what's going to happen. And they stole so much. So people talk about how like foreign aid is, what does Ron Paul say? Foreign aid is one country's poorest people giving another country's richest people. Oh yeah. Essentially. Yes. Yeah. So we gave $22 million to the Philippines this year for COVID relief for their citizens. And like every one of my families, like individual homes, received a 2-kilogram sack of rice. Wow. That was it for 2 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And of course, it doesn't actually solve the underlying problems.
And then arresting people trying to go to work, arresting people trying to go to school.
Right. Destroying their economic productivity otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, man. So like we have a little family business here, and my mom does money remittances. So I try to tell people, like, if you really want to help a foreign country, just reduce the cost of remittances. I mean, billions of dollars a year are charged when we send money across the world because it costs money to send money to other countries via like Western Union or like, RIA. But if we just eliminated the remittances and just let them send their money, we would never have to send foreign aid anywhere again.
Are you saying like taxation on those things? Like if they're tax transactions?
No. So like to send $100 costs you $20, right? To send $1,000 costs you $100. Right. So rather than giving you $1,100, I can only give you $1,000. Because let them give the whole $1,100. Don't make it so expensive to send the money.
Well, that would be a private market issue then, and the regulations surrounding that, because
Yeah,
it
so
costs
removing
money
the regulations,
right, because they
and
have to
get
deal
the
with
government out of the damn way of the regulations, so that these companies can fight over who can send it for the cheapest. And
right. Yeah, well, I mean, definitely the AML laws in America make that very tough. Anti-money laundering laws and the compliance regulations are pretty hefty. And of course, the government's monitoring all different types of things. And the whole claim is we're just trying to stop drug trafficking. We're trying to stop, human trafficking, other stuff like that. And it's like, at first, it's like, oh, it sounds like you're trying to help, maybe, like, from a status perspective. But then you look at, the underlying thing, and it's just like, no, they're just literally like trying to, go after people for money for any business transaction and shut down competition and use it for political purposes, and going after, political groups they don't like, or competition, stuff like that. So it's the same old, And
then the same lobbyists that pay for those laws are the companies that benefit from the remittances.
Right. The regulatory hurdles. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So. It's such a game that it's like they're not even interested in playing anymore. It's so played out. It's the same playbook every single time. But yet the statist amongst us, they happily go online every single time. Where's my boxcar?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough to fight all of the brainwashing and the programming the government does through public school and through, collaboration with the media and, all the different things they do, to have propaganda with the military at football games and parades and signage, all the stuff. So it's
so here, quick question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite American propaganda film?
Oh, I mean, if I were to say, like, in terms of, because it's funny, because it's like American propaganda films, there's many that are like very much just like a pure propaganda film. It's like typically like SEAL Team 6 kind of stuff, or like, like stuff, stuff about like war hero things. But I find that a lot of movies are, even in just like seeming like just benign entertainment, are actually still technically, American nationalism propaganda movies, including things like superhero movies and stuff like that. Like Captain America and Civil War, for example, like even there, the original comic was supposed to be this question of liberty versus tyranny and actually fighting against like the police state. And then they watered that down for Civil War and things like that. So, I immediately actually thought if like for serious propaganda, I thought of like The Boys, like the show, even though it's not a movie, but that like immediately clicked in my mind of being like a show that really pushes the leftist central planning statist narratives. Because in the show The Boys, the heroes, while they're acting outside the government, whatever, some of their like ex-agents, stuff like that, they show the CIA as being just hamstrung with red tape, and there's just some bad apples, and if only they had more resources, they could take out these bad guys. And they have like the AOC archetype at the end coming in to try to save the day and kill the guy who looks like he represents Scientology, even though it's not Scientology there, it's like a, representation kind of how they set it up. So the whole thing is just this like leftist American nationalism kind of thing. I mean, and that was true in Suicide Squad, the second one, right? They had a, especially with Peacemaker, making him like American imperialism, kind of a offshoot there, but then like trying to make it seem like as if the government was the good guys, and, the American exploitation of other countries is bad, but that's why you need a good leftist, strong leader to like, do missions for you now. We need, we did the SJW CIA. So
mine is just Olympus Has Fallen. I love that. Those are awesome. Or Red Dawn, right? Red Dawn was made the year before I was born.
A long time. Yeah.
Oh man, that's everything that we watch, I always laugh because I'm like, dude, that's so. I wonder if other people in other countries think the same way that we do about our country.
Oh, well, I mean, certainly in terms of propaganda in, various countries, I know that to be true. Obviously, there's a different slant, of course, with how it's presented in their media and vice versa. In some ways, they might get more honest reporting about American activities.
Yeah. I bet,
yeah.
That's probably really true. I wonder how many people do that. Like, I mean, like BBC, a lot of people like BBC more than anything we offer here. So I don't know that it's any better.
Well, I've seen various shows and programmings like around the world, from Russia, UK, and even Southeast Asia. And it's the same kind of thing. It's every government will go and point out the harms and malfeasances of other governments, right? Like, oh, see, look, they did these bad things. Just like the North Korean government, they have like a tour of a U.S. ship, there they captured. Like they use the narratives of bad things of other governments to promote their narrative that they're good, while hiding, of course, their same bad deeds. It's the same thing with every government. They're like, see, look, this other government's super bad. Look at this atrocity they committed. But then, but we're going to cover up the fact that, in China, that there's all these people being put in internment camps.
Yeah.
So,
as Americans, we're bad about that. Like we act as if we haven't thrown our own people into concentration camps like 7 different times. So
sorry, lost for a quick second.
I was like, whoa, what just happened?
I accidentally hit a mouse button that took me back out for a quick second. We're good. Wait, so you were saying?
I don't even remember now, dude.
I took you out of the zone. So propaganda in other countries. You're talking
Delta Force is good. Yeah, the old school Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Oh man, dude. I mean, it's funny. I don't really consider Independence Day to be that same. I consider it to be a little bit different because at least it's more of like a globalist thing, not just a nationalist thing.
Oh, like Will Smith Independence Day?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's definitely like a unification there of like a different global government. So that's another part of it, right? The whole bent is like ultimately what, in terms of those at the highest level central bankers want is they want a unified global government. Because of course you control a global government, you have the ultimate seat of power to do whatever you want across the world. So, it's one of those things where there's different levels of, narrative building that's going on depending on which Hollywood film it is. Like some's more the just, American exceptionalism. And then some is like, yeah, let's take it all the way up. So we need a global, government for good. I'm trying to remember the movie that I saw not too long ago that was definitely tied into that. It was a movie about a guy who's able to go into the future to fight like aliens. Someone's gonna have to remember this for me. He goes into
from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. That was another one of those movies. I just forgot the name. Oh, I gotta
where it's like they're like the World Cup or something, and then like they come from out of the
right. Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
That movie's crazy. That was a good one too.
I'm looking this up right now because this is too good. I gotta get that name real quick. Okay, so Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Star-Lord.
Right. Let me see. No, it's not the Tomorrow War. That's not it. Oh, come on, you gotta be kidding me. It's
the War for Tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just looking at like Chris Pratt alien future movie. Let's see. The Tomorrow War. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Tomorrow. Right. The Tomorrow War. Exactly. So that's another one where the whole thing was like conscription was being focused on, and they're using their bodies the way they want the government's like injecting them with stuff and like, well, you're doing this for your country. They got everybody, right? So it's like this whole idea of, oh, well, everybody fights. So it's this predictive programming idea that all the people in who are fighting are a diversified cast, different, all the whatever genders, sexes, colors, whatever. Oh, see, everybody fights.
Yeah,
now.
They have the big fat guy and
right. No matter what your size is, everybody fights, right? See, because you're Americans, you fight with this new global force to stop the world's ending. See, we get to control you. So it's crazy how that kind of stuff is done to program people to believe that. And of course, who's the hero? The guy is someone who is an unvalued or uncherished high school science teacher, and he has these great ideas, right? Oh, but he can't get the job he wants. He's just kept out of the private market. These terrible rich private market people are keeping him out of his dreams of being a research scientist. It's got everything. I mean, it's nuts.
And then like Star Trek, the whole thing's like that. Like if we have a peaceful universe, we don't need money and everything's free.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that Star Trek was built, written by the guy who wrote it, Roddenberry, I think, or before him, maybe because I was Voyager. I don't know. The whole thing is written by a socialist. So it's a whole socialist idea of like a socialist government in the future, with the Starship Enterprise, stuff like that. So definitely.
Another really good socialist propaganda movie, Starship Troopers.
Right. Yes. Because that was about American nationalist exceptionalism, conscripting people, having guys and girls shower in the same showers, right?
Yeah. Everyone in the entire world speaks only English.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's all probably, and that's why I do what I do with my work, trying to add more of the creative space that's for liberty. So Well, I really appreciate you coming on here, Kelly, and I'm excited to see what you do next. Could you let everybody here know what it is that they should check out if they want to keep up with your work, like where to go find you and things like that?
Yeah, so on Facebook, you can go to Kelly Carden for Kern County Supervisor. My website is www.cardenforkern.com. I have a need. I'd love to get a billboard up. What I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to put a billboard up in Spanish in one of the communities in our district. Nobody reached out to them at all, so I figure I might as well. But it's costing about $1,900.
Wow.
So anyone who could help, I greatly appreciate that. Carden for Kern is also the tag for Facebook and Instagram. I have a ton of appearances coming up at different things. I'm actually in the same week, I'm speaking at the most Republican group in the county as well as the most Democratic group in the county. Wow. So I go into the fire, man. If you want me to, I'll tell you what, I can get a soundbite out at the Democratic thing. Just send me whatever you want me to say.
Taxation is theft.
So this is an interesting one because the woman who runs it, she marched with Cesar Chavez. She's been a community organizer for 70 years. She's incredibly leftist, but she's also incredibly impactful in our communities. She does a lot of giveaways and a lot of other things. I completely disagree with her like 99% of her politics. But it might be on video. I looked at her and they had just spent like a bunch of time. She just spent time calling everyone racist. All the white people in the room racist. You racist white men.
Oh my goodness.
And like, I may or may not agree that some of these white men are racist, but I don't agree with you blanket brushing every one of them, right?
Right. Of course.
So I got up and I looked at her and I said, Miss Huerta, does that mean that something's wrong with me for marrying my white wife? Or are you suggesting that I should only love my brown daughter and not my other white kids?
Wow. Dang. That's a good roast. You got some good loaded statements there. I love it.
Yeah, I've always been like the funny guy, but like, I don't want to be like the class clown, but I'm the guy who like sits in the corner and once or twice a week would like say something and the teachers would be like, holy shit.
That's good. No, putting them in the hot seat is where they need to be, because without it, they just think that, everybody just believes what I believe. And it's just, natural, like, right. You're just stupid, right? You got to show them through their hypocrisies and their contradictions and through their absurdities, what their true nature of their statements are. So.
Yeah. I think I highlighted that her husband was wearing a Rolex and I never had anything nicer than like a Casio.
Love it. Well, thank you.
Man. Well, I appreciate you having me on, brother. That was great.
And thank you, LS420, for that little super chat there. He says to you, God's be with you, Kelly. So awesome. And I'm not sure when my next show will be. As always, it's always random because I just meet whenever someone's available. So I'll let y'all know when that comes up as it comes up. But until then, stay free, and I'll catch you soon with some more fun stuff. I'm going to definitely be following what you do next with your sound bits and your interviews, Kelly. So excited for that. All right. Take care, everybody.
ZeroState with Jack Lloyd.